Hi everybody, welcome to Shivers. We are back for another early movie review, which is super cool. So another big shout out for thanking everybody for allowing the Shivers group to see the movie early. But today we are talking about Drop. This movie comes out on Friday, April 11th. We got to see it tonight, which was pretty cool. This is the latest Blumhouse movie. This is almost the first crossover of Blumhouse horror into action movie. The producer of this movie is not only Jason Blum of Blumhouse, but it is also Michael Bay. Michael Bay is this very famous action movie director, producer, all of the above. So, before getting into any spoilers, if you plan on seeing this movie, if you want to hear just the review, go all the way to the end. Otherwise, we'll get into the story now. So, Drop really revolves around Violet, who is a single mother of a little boy named Toby. She has a sister named Jen, and she's about to go on a date with this guy named Henry, who she's matched with on these online dating profiles. So the whole premise of the story is that Violet is this domestic abuse survivor, but she is also a psychologist, psychiatrist. So we really start the movie with what you would assume is kind of the ending, almost that White Lotus style. And we end up seeing that it is her ex-husband who ended up killing himself, offing himself. So it's this very tragic tale of everything that has happened in front of Toby, who is now this, I guess, toddler, young child rather than a baby, which is what he was when all of this happened with her ex-husband. So now she's finally ready to get back out there, mingle, meet people, do all these things. So she matches with Henry, and they're planning their first in-person date. We get a glimpse of a conversation between her and Jen, her sister, as Jen comes over to babysit Toby. And she's like, you've been hanging on this man and basically stringing him along for 3 months now. Like, it's about time to finally meet him. So we already know there's that hesitancy ahead of this date. She's worried about going on the date. She's has all of this survival trauma on her as well. So this movie has a very big picture feeling and umbrella of this domestic abuse and how do we move forward. So now we're finally going on the date. Beforehand, we see her talking on Zoom in all of these conversations with these domestic abuse survivors. And this one person in particular, she's like, imagine that you're looking at yourself and telling yourself that you're worthless. You would never do that. You would never be able to look at yourself in the eye and say, I'm worthless. So why are you giving anybody else the power to do that too? So that sort of comes into hand later, but it's all for the point of saying that she's not only gone through this, but now she's helping other people, as well. So we get to the actual restaurant. She's there early before Henry even gets there and mingling with these other people at the bar. She bumps into this guy, Richard, who's very nice, who's also there on a first date. They're sharing their sort of first date jitters. We have the bartender. Her name is Cara, and she's very much interested in what Violet is doing. Basically like, yeah, this is a great place to have a first date. It's great to get yourself back out there. You want some liquid courage? Like, I got you, girl. And then this other guy who has yet to be named, who has bumped into her twice and kind of like exchanged phones. So already from the get-go, there's a lot of different interactions, which I think is a really great setup for the story. So Henry finally arrives with his bag, and in his bag is his camera. He says he can't leave his camera in the car because it's too expensive, whatever. So they begin having their dinner, and she gets all of these memes on her phone, and it's like, I'm watching you, you have to pay attention, like, don't ignore me. And so she's like, what is this? So she shows it to Henry. He's like, oh, that's just a stupid app, and only people who are in a 50-foot radius can tag you in this. It's the same thing as AirDrop for Apple phones. So he basically traces the edge of the restaurant and notes that it has to be somebody in the restaurant. So again, from a really great setup perspective, we've already seen her bump into a whole bunch of people. So from a whodunit perspective, we already have these eyes of, I don't want to say concern, but a lookout perspective on who's around her, what's going on. So The waiter comes over, it's very jokey, he's very over the top, very flamboyant. He says that it's his first shift ever and he's assigned to their table. So already now we're starting to second guess the waiter, even though he's very funny, very charismatic, all of that. We're starting to second guess the date himself, because then somebody comes over and says, oh, you specifically requested this table. Violet starts getting more and more of these messages, and they're basically prompting her to, long story short, kill her date, kill Henry. Or somebody is already in her home, which she can see on her security camera, and they're going to not only hurt her son, but also her sister who was babysitting. So, of course, they say you can't tell Henry. That would be dumb. And now all of this secrecy starts happening. So she makes it very obvious that something is going on. She's constantly getting up from the table. She's moving about. She's looking for clues. On the vase that's on their table is this little listening device. There's also a little listening device in the ladies' bathroom. So this has all been premeditated and all set up before she even got there. Again, it's just this whodunit mentality. So in the bathroom, there is this vial that she's directed to get, and says pour this vial into his drink and kill him, and also take out the SD card from his camera. Both of which she's successful in doing, not killing him, but putting the stuff in his drink. So she takes the SD card and finds out that he is a press person for the mayor. And the mayor has all of these secrets, and he has photographical proof, evidence that the mayor is up to some shady stuff. So that's, of course, what we're destroying. Why we need to kill him on top of that, I don't know. Why she's the one who had to do it, I don't really know. But as we continue in the story, we then are, from her perspective, looking at all of these other people. Very long story short, we get to this penultimate point, and she walks up to Richard, the very nice guy who's on his first date as well, and he says, like, yep, it's me, and I'm really shocked that you have not gotten the job done yet. The cameras have picked up the fact that you spiked his drink, so you're already done for, even if he doesn't drink it. And basically we chose you because not only have you been talking to him for these last couple of months and have this rapport of truth going on, but we also know your story with your ex-husband, and yes, it was ruled a suicide, and maybe your word is that he killed himself as well, but we really do believe, and again, I'm working for somebody, we really do believe that you had something to do with your late husband's death, and so you have the gumption to be able to do this. So she basically retorts, has this full-blown conversation with Richard. He orders this dessert, and she says, well, my ex, every single time that we would get into an argument or get into a fight, he would take me out to a really nice restaurant and apologize, and then he would always get this specific dessert as well. So, like mine's, I guess. And the guy's like, whatever, like, I could really care less. So he's eating this dessert, and then he finds out that she has never put that vial into Henry's drink, and she then just saved it and spiked his dessert when he was not paying attention. So all hell breaks loose. Richard takes a gun out of his coat pocket and tries to shoot her, but it ends up going through the window, and it also hits Henry along the way as well. The entire rapport between Henry and Violet as well is very charismatic, very sarcastic before she's kind of skirty. So there's already that built up connection, which is nice to watch. But we have this then crazy ending, and she almost falls out of this building, which is on the 38th floor. Henry pulls her up with a gunshot wound in his stomach, and he's like, go get your kid. I know, I can only assume that your kid's in trouble. So she takes his car and speeds home and finds her kid and her sister just in time. So the movie ends in a very happy way. They are at the hospital, and the sister is in the room right next to Henry. So Jen and Henry and Violet everybody's just having this really nice ending. Toby is totally fine, probably scarred for a lifetime, but fine. And you know, it really is like a happy ending. So it's nice to have that as an ending. I think the rapport between Violet and Henry is really nice, especially from the fact of just like casting. You know, these are two really beautiful people. And so being able to see them in almost a vulnerable state while also being charming and sarcastic and funny and connected to each other, there's an element that like we want to root for them, which is there. The actual filmography of it is really, really great. There's some great captures. It really functions similarly in style to a play, especially when we're talking about this whodunit mentality. Every time that she's thinking it's somebody new, all the lights around them go dim and they're in this spotlight of a way, which I think is just visually very pleasing. And again, you know, from the waiter aspect to that comedy, I think the level of comedy and humanity that's in this movie is what is really going to carry it for a lot of audiences. I think for me, really pigeonholing it into being focused on domestic abuse survivors is a little bit too specific. I think that if it was more tailored to that idea of, you know, first dates and what could go wrong on a first date, and then leaning into the comedy of that, of just like this absurdity, I think it would have been a little bit better. I think being in the restaurant for the entirety, of the entire movie is also a little bit boring. It ended up, if I have to sum up this movie in one word, it would just be boring. It has a good point. On paper, I could see why critics like it. I think that being able to have it stand for that side of the audience of domestic abuse survivors and just this like women empowerment side of it in general too is really nice and refreshing, but it's too specific. And you know, for somebody like me who's just a murder mystery fan, a whodunit fan, having it bleed into all of these really deeper ties, I just don't think is really necessary. And it seemed like that was sort of the feedback from the group too. Like, it's nice to have, but it's really not needed. And then just the timing of it all. Like, there's more that could have happened, even just a shakeup of scenery rather than just spending the entire time in the restaurant. Like, if anybody were to ever act the way that she acted on a first date, you would not be there. Like, even for him, of having that connectedness of speaking for over 3 months with each other, like, it would be very, very rare for him to really stay. So again, that's the overall view of the movie itself. I want to portray it in a way that it is still a murder mystery. It is very funny. It is very human natured. It does have that action orientation more than it has that thriller aspect. And I think that mixed with the deeper levels is just, it makes it too try hard. That's what it sums up. So in terms of the actual score, in terms of the story itself, I would give it a 3 out of 5. Again, you know, it has all the makings of a good murder mystery. It has the filming of a good murder mystery, but not all the players are in their right spots. For originality, I would give it a 4 out of 5. We've done the whole, you know, don't let anybody see your phone type of thing, you know, or somebody's going to die. That whole ransom nature, hostage nature of it, but really never from that perspective of the domestic abuse survivors. So I think that would definitely give it credit towards that originality. For the acting, I would give it a 4.5, maybe 5. I think everybody did their job and did their job well. I'm not a giant fan of Toby, the little boy, but that's just my thing with kids in movies. So I'll refrain from my judgment for this particular time. For the production, I would give it a 4 out of 5. Again, it's filmed really beautifully. I think the cinema of it is really, really awesome. I think the shots are really great. But being in this restaurant the entire time, there's so much of an emphasis on the fact that this is a beautiful restaurant. Like, I get it. I saw how beautiful it was when she first walked in there. If I walked in there on a regular basis, I would say, damn, this place is beautiful. Like, we get it. We don't have to see the minute details of the bathroom doors and how they're crafted and the handles on them. Like, you know, I want more scenes, especially in terms of her racing home from the restaurant. She makes a comment earlier in the movie that her house is only a couple minutes away from the restaurant. So we know that the journey is going to be short, but the most exciting thing that we could get is that she drives over cones in a construction zone. Like, it's not doing anything for me. And then last but not least, we have scares. This is in no way, shape, or form a scary movie. I would show this movie to a toddler. It's not scary. It is a 1.5, 2 out of 5. The only reason why I would give it a 2 is just, again, from that humanity perspective of this is how people act, and, you know, how do we manage that, especially from a woman's perspective. So all of that put together, we get a 3.6 out of 5. Not a bad review. Again, not a bad movie, just kind of boring. This, especially as compared to the last review of The Woman in the Yard, The Woman in the Yard is so deep, but that's the point. This is a murder mystery, but the deepness is in the background and not needed. This is a movie that tries to be what The Woman in the Yard and even Talk to Me is. It's these conversations about the psyche of what people go through, and that's the fear of it. But this is filmed in such a way and structured in such a way that it would be one of those movies that you're watching in the background while you're cleaning or doing household chores. That's in the background. You can just take a glimpse every once in a while. Whereas Talk to Me, Woman in the Yard, and I'm only bringing them up because they're recent. Those are movies that you're really locked into. Those are the seriousness of what we're talking about, the dread, this has that in the background, and it's not needed. Before I continue to beat a dead horse, that is the review. That is the Shivers review of Drop. Summed up in a pretty little bow. It is boring, but it is poignant about the domestic abuse. It is thoughtful in their relationship curating. I think everybody from an acting perspective did a good job. The cinema is really great, but this is an action movie first, a thriller suspense movie second, a psychological commentary third. That's the summary of this movie. Would I recommend it to everybody to go see it in the movies? No. Would I recommend everybody to go see it? No. I think it's going to be one of those cute movies that comes out on streaming, something that's just interesting to watch when it's out. Oh, this is something new, why not? I think it's pretty cool that Violet and Jen are both on murder mystery TV shows, so they have that element of familiarity within the genre. That's it. So, again, I know that I've repeated a lot of information through this review, but I hope that you enjoyed listening. If you are going to go see the movie, let me know your expectations. If you have seen it by the time that you're watching this review, let me know your thoughts as well. As always, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for the support of Shivers. Hopefully we get to see more early movies and get some more early content out to you guys as well. So thank you so much, and I will see you all next week.